afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my channel called Astonishing History. Today, we will explore and discover about why was Thomas Becket murdered and why did the Magna Carta had started in 1215. For this For this story, we shall go back to the year of 1154. In 1154, Thomas Becket and King Henry II of England were best friends. They used to share their clothes, had wine together, get gambled, and drunk together. Whatever their purpose were, they loved to share with each other. So, in 1162, uh, Thomas Becket was Chancellor of England of the court. So Henry II had a master plan that Thomas Becket could be the Chancellor, the first point, and then 2 years later in 1164, Thomas Becket became the Archbishop of England. So 1162, Thomas Becket became the Chancellor of England. In 1164, Thomas Becket became the Archbishop of the Church of England, which make Thomas Becket and King Henry II less wine drinking and more religious to the church. To the church. Henry II had an argument with Thomas Becket of the right orders of the church in the same year, 1164. When King Henry II and Thomas Becket had a widespread argument, an overwhelming argument with each other. So the Thomas Becket was excommunicated to France for 7 years. In 1170, Thomas Becket was brutally murdered by the four evil knights, which were also by the men of King Henry II. For one knight had killed Beckett's head, and one knight had stabbed his chest, one knight had stabbed his eyes, and one had stabbed his head again, which was the brain was nearly concluded. Now, in 1170, Thomas Becket was murdered, and 4 years later, the case was proved that King Henry II was the mischief of the English court of Thomas Becket's death. So King Henry II was arrested and he got tortured and whipped by Pope Alexander III, which you can see in this photo of King Henry II and the Pope who is whipping the king. Later on, in 1174, King Henry II was caught, and by that year, Henry II had to give a big sorry to Thomas Becket. So he had cut off his toes and his foot with bloody legs. So on. In 1189, King Henry II had died, and his two sons were succeeded to the throne: Richard the Lionheart and King John I. From 1189 to 1199, Richard II or Richard the Lionheart was the next king who fought against the Muslim Crusaders and the Muslim army, which he gained a treaty with Salahuddin Ayyubi. Then in 1178 to 1199, Salahuddin Ayyubi had made a treaty with Richard II that there will be no war against the Christians or the Muslims. After when Richard died in 1199, King John I became king in 1199 to 1216. In the year of 1215, King John had captured the Rochester Castle and he made the Magna Carta in 1215. These are some texts of the laws which are included, and even today, England, as Britain, is following of the Magna Carta. King John I was also cruel and he was also reckless at the same time. The peasant and the barons disliked him, and he was a complete hatred by them. King John only listened to his French wife and his French friends or relatives. Other than that, the peasants were so curious about John that they disliked they disliked the mischief of John the First of England. John the First had starved the poor people to death and whipped them in a very big torture. This was how King John became the king, and later in 1216, when he died, his son King Henry III became king, and Henry III was just like his father, John the First. When Henry III became king, so he also disrespect or became mischief with barons. Therefore, Henry III died soon, and his son Edward the First became king. So this story tells us that the king was the best friend of Thomas Becket in the first place. The king got a whip, he got punished, and his son was just like his father, John, and John's son Henry III was like his father. However, this is the story and a very short story based on Henry II and John the First that the Magna Carta was forced to sign in. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.